The topic is over Lasiyasan. And if we have some time, this is a long source sheet. If we have time, we'll get into, there's Shulchan Aruch and Mishnah Berurah at the end that go over Mashiv Aruch and Morid Hageshem. So if we have a few minutes at the end, we'll try to go through some of these interesting scenarios that come up. But I think we're sort of familiar, at least to some degree, I think everybody is, with what over Lasiyasan means. It's basically how we try to make our bracha on whatever mitzvah we're doing. We make the bracha before we do the mitzvah, right? So, you think about a lot of what we do, whether it's a bracha like berachas hanenin, where you're making a mazonos on a cookie, you make the bracha, you eat the item. What are some other examples? Could be similarly, it could be like Kiddush, where again, you're making the brachos, then you drink the wine. But where does so what we're going to see is where the concept comes from and some of the intricacies, because different mitzvahs, we sort of perform the mitzvah at a different moment with regard to the bracha that we make on it. So the idea is introduced in the Gemara in Pesachim, where it says, perfect. Here's Shai. So before I jump in, let him just connect real quick, and then we'll just start where we left off. See if he joins quickly. If not, hey Shai, can you hear us?
Yeah. How are you guys?
Awesome. Okay. Doing well. And if you've got your video up, you can see the screen share. Hopefully you can see the source sheet. If not, I'll read it too.
I can see it. Yep.
Perfect. So the middle line of this first source is the Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel Kol HaMitzvahs Mevorich Alehen over Lasiyasan. So there's the Gemara. That's the source for how we know that the bracha is made before we perform the action. Okay, so now the next source, which is really just a continuation of the Gemara, is just how Sefaria sort of cuts the pieces of the Gemara and pieces them together. So the Gemara then asks, "My mashma dehai over lishna dakdumihu." It's a strange language to say over la'asiyasan. We're passing over before we're doing it. Like, what does that mean exactly? So the Gemara asks, how is it mashma that when we say over, that we're talking about lashon dakdumi, that we're doing it beforehand, right? Kodem. So Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak the Amar Kra vayoratz achimatz derech hakikor vayavor es hakushi. So we're going to see that there's two psukim that are brought to try and help us understand what is the language of over. So the first one, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak brings it's a pasuk from Shmuel, where we're talking about the times of David HaMelech, and this is where his son, I believe it's Avshalom, who is revolting against him, and they're doing battle. And David HaMelech told his generals, please don't kill Avshalom, bring him back intact. But what happens? Avshalom is killed in battle. And so Achimatz decides, I need to tell David what happened because, this isn't what he wanted to have happen. So so it says that the Kushi ran to go tell David HaMelech, but Achimatz decided, I need to do it myself. So he ran and he vayavor es Kushi, and he overtook the Kushi in order to get to David HaMelech and let him know what happened. All right, so that's our first pasuk. The second one is Abaye. Amar mehacha vu avar lifnehem vi bois ema, but there's a different one, and this is actually the one I'm going to focus on. Vi beis ema, there's another answer. Mehacha vayavor malkam lifnehem va'ashem berosham. And this is a pasuk from Micha where it's talking about that your king will pass in front of you, but it only happens when everybody, basically all the soldiers, all of the entourage is already placed out. They're already in their positions, and then the king will come and walk before you. He's not going to do so beforehand, before everybody's already sort of in their places. Okay. Everybody with me so far? Awesome. So those are the two psukim that we use. It's the Gemara. And I think we're still left sort of wondering, like, okay, how does this help us understand why we call it over la'asiyasan? So the Haimek Davar, which is the Netziv, I ran into this a couple of years ago. I think he has a beautiful understanding of how, or explanation of how we can understand this. So he starts by talking about, this is in Parshas Vayelech, at the end of Devarim, and the pasuk that he's talking about is talking about Yoshua, and it says that Hashem, so here's the Devra Maschal, who over lefanecha, Hashem will be over lefanecha. He says that to Yoshua, but there's about 3 or 4 different psukim where HaKadosh Baruch Hu's sort of relationship with Yoshua is described in different terms. And the Netziv says, Hinei ra'inu b'parshas zu arba lashonos shel hashgacha. And then what the Netziv is talking about is how this is the hashgacha, this is the relationship, or this is the way that Hashem will be interacting with Yehoshua in 4 different ways. Hu over lefanecha, hu haholech imach, hu haholech lefanecha, hu yihya imach. Those are the 4 that the Netziv just sort of puts together. Again, those are from about 4 or 5 different psukim, all right here in this parsha. So he says, but before I can explain this concept, v'yesh lahakdim, lashon gemara Pesachim daf zayin, amar Shmuel kol mitzvos mevorech aleim over la'asiyasan. So here he's going to sort of tangentially get into our Gemara and give us an understanding of what's going on.
Jeff, can you go back a little bit to the 4 ways?
Yeah.
What's the difference hu over lefanecha, hu olech lefanecha?
So that's exactly what the Netziv is talking about. So without spending too much time on those psukim, so those are actually from the psukim where it says that Hashem will be over lefanecha too. This is with regards to Yehoshua when he takes over as beyond, after Moshe dies, Yehoshua takes over and leads the Bnei Yisrael into Eretz Yisrael, and he says the pasuk says who over lefanecha, it says Hashem hu haholech imach, he'll walk with you to Yehoshua, hu haholech lefanecha, he'll walk in front of you, and hu yihya imach, and he'll be with you. So those are the 4 different languages, and you can see where it talks about over lefanecha, which is going to be part of why the Netziv sort of brought this in, because he's sort of tying this concept over to what we're looking at. But again, we're not going to get into the hashgacha aspect. That's a different topic altogether. But we're just going to focus on how the Netziv now explains our Gemara. So he quotes our Gemara, Amar Shmuel, kol mitzvahs mevorech aleim over li'asiyasan, my mashma dahai over lishna daktumihu, Amar Nachman bar Yitzchak, the Amar Kra, vayartach imad derech hakikar, vayavor es akushi, abai Amar mehocha, vayavor malkam lifneihem. Okay, that's our Gemara. So now, Vikasha. The Netziv asks, Lamai Amar Shmuel b'lashon shenitzrach lefarish. Why does Shmuel have to tell us over la'asiyasan, which doesn't really make a lot of sense? Lema kodem la'asiyasan, or lifnei asiyasan. Either one would be very clear to us that you make the bracha before you do the action. Visu, and moreover, b'mai pligi hani amoroi, bavos psukim elu. Why do you have 2 different, the Amoraim, why are they coming together, Rav Nachman by Yitzchak and Abai, with 2 different psukim? What exactly is the machlokas there that they're bringing 2 different psukim? V'chi davar chachma yesh lahavi pasuk acher. Is there some reason to this? Ella al korchach yesh b'zeh kavana amuka. There is something very deep going on here. Dilifnei o kodem haya b'mashma od shelo hischa b'mitzvah klal. If I'd said you do the mitzvah lifnei asiyas, you make the bracha lifnei asiyasan or kodem asiyasan. Okay, that's going to imply that you're doing it before you start the mitzvah at all. Now, what does that mean? Mishu hachi amar lashon over the mashmo samuch mamish. In other words, don't think that you can make the bracha and then there's some maybe intervening period where you're doing, where you're still preparing to do the mitzvah or something else. No, what we're trying to really get out of this is to say that you're doing it right next to, or right before the mitzvah itself. Right, Samuch mamash sheyochas biyado davar mitzvah, that you have it in your hand, that you are prepared to do it. So that's, I think, part of what we're also, what we're learning from this is that before you make the bracha, you really should be like ready right away to do the mitzvah. V'az yaschel levarich, that's when you can start to make the bracha. V'zehu mashmos hamikra vayavor malkam lifneihem, and that is the implication when we say that your melech is walking, is passing before you. Chaburah she'ein hamelech maschel lelech ad shekvar kol hatzava muchanim lotzes va'omdim al hagvul. Clearly, the king isn't going to start going until everybody's already in his place, right? That's not the kavod of a melech to sort of walk in when there's an empty, into an empty theater, or, an empty, without an audience there. Everyone has to be set up before the king can come in. So there's the mashmos, back to our, that the mitzvah is ready before you're making the bracha. Amnam, vayavor es akushi od perushu. I'm not remember what those Rashi Tevos are, but the idea is that there's a different concept that we're going to learn from Vayavor es Akushi. Shahari Akushi halach lifnei Achimatz. We know that the Kushi left before Achimatz did to go tell David HaMelech that his son was killed. V'Achimatz ratz me'acharav, and he had to run from, sort of catch up from behind. V'aver alav v'lefanav. He has to pass by him and go in front of him. V'hachanami yesh lahachel habracha. Here too, you have to start the bracha. V'achar kach la'asos hamitzvah ulagomra, and then you do the mitzvah and you complete it. V'achar kach ligmor habracha, and then you complete the bracha itself. So you start the bracha, you start the bracha, you start the mitzvah, you finish the mitzvah, and then you finish the bracha. Ushnei haperushim emes, the mitzvah she'efshar la'asos be'emtza habracha. And you're probably starting to think about what's going on here. Think about when we put on tefillin in the morning. So you put on the tefillin, right? And you start to make the bracha when it's already on your yad, right? But you don't say lehaniach until you already move that strap, right? I'm a righty, so I'm doing it on my left hand. But when you're ready to move that strap down, that's lehaniach tefillin. So you've already started the bracha, you've started the mitzvah, but you don't complete it until you pull the strap and then say lahaniach tefillin and finish the bracha. That's, according to the Netziv, the mashmos of bringing this pasuk from David HaMelech. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So he says kamok shirs tefillin mila. I think it's the same thing. I'm not a moil, but I think he makes the bracha of al hamila as they're actually like cutting. I believe that's how they do it. So like, it's not like you make the bracha then cut. You are making the bracha as you're doing the maisa.
Jeff, what happens with netilat yadayim?
That's a very good question. Let me get to that in just a moment. Let's just finish this and then we'll jump back, because that's a unique, or maybe not unique, but certainly a special situation. So yesh levarich lefnei hascholas ha'maisa v'lasos v'ligmor es habracha. Right, that's what we just described. You make the bracha before you start it, but then you finish it, and then you finish the bracha. Masha'in came, but that's as opposed to the mitzvah she'i efshar bekach. But there's a lot of mitzvahs we can't do that way. Kambo achilas matzah, right? On Pesach night, when it's a mitzvah to eat matzah on Seder night, we have to make the bracha and then eat it. You can't start the bracha, put matzah in your mouth, and then finish the bracha, right? That doesn't work. So that way of doing it isn't going to work. The Tkiyah shofar as another example. Tkiyah shofar, you have to make the bracha beforehand, and then you blow the shofar. You can't start blowing the shofar and then make a bracha. That process wouldn't work. Okay. And there's plenty of other examples that we could probably give. So sometimes you have to do it before, but again, the shofar is right in your mouth. You're ready to do it. And so you're not pausing, you're not doing anything else. You're ready to do the mitzvah when you make the bracha. Okay. אי אפשר אלא לברך קודם אז חולס המצווה. Okay. אבל מכל מקום סומך ממש, שהי אוחז במצה בשופר. You're already holding on to it. So, Shai, you're asking a good question, but what about Netilas Yadayim, where we actually really, we don't do it over Las Siyasan? And so there's probably a few different reasons. One of, I think the most pasha reason, is that the reason why we're washing Netilas Yadayim is because there is some level of tuma on the hands, which means we don't want to be making a bracha yet. We want to make the bracha afterwards, after we've already washed Netilas Yadayim. So I think that's a little bit of a different, it's a special situation, but yeah, you're right. That's not one we can do over Las Siyasan. Another example is hadlakas neros on Shabbos, at least, right? Where you have to light first and then you can make the bracha, because if you do it over Las Siyasan, you've already, for women at least, they've already taken in Shabbos when they make the bracha, and now if they lit, that would be a malacha. So that would be problematic.
And there's also some brachas where there's no action at all, such as when you see a rainbow, you don't do anything.
Right.
You've already seen it.
Although it's interesting there too, like that's a great example, or thunder, lightning, very apropos these days. So those are also but you have to make the bracha like tekaf, like right away after you see it. If there's a pause, then it's questionable whether you can make the bracha. So there's still this concept of really putting it close by. But yeah, you're right. That's those are more of just hearing or seeing.
What about Lasheva Sukkah? Has to be while you're sitting, just before you sit, or at any moment when you're in Sukkah, can you do it?
Right. So that's a good question. So usually we make it on when you're eating something. So let's say, you make hamotzi or whatever else. You make hamotzi, and then right before you eat it, you say the leishev basukah. So that's a good question, because you're already inside the sukkah. So I guess in some ways the mitzvah is already sort of ochez biyado, because you're already inside the sukkah. And you're right. That's said right before you actually, for the most part, we only make it when you are eating in the sukkah. So you're right. You'd be doing it right before you eat. So again, it's sort of that, really connecting it right to what you're doing, and not just sort of making a leishe basukah detached from, eating something in the sukkah. All right. So hopefully that was, helpful. I mean, if you've ever heard that term over Las Siyasan, it's a confusing one. So when I saw the Netziv, I thought, wow, that's, it's really nice how he sort of puts the whole sugya together with these two different psukim, and really sort of marries it and gives you that insight as to what's going on. Okay, so if you've got a few more minutes, we'll jump into, it's really just two seifim in Orach Chaim where we talk about Mashiv Ruach, timely for this time of year. We just started it the end of Sukkot. So the Mechaber, so this is the Shulchan Aruch, says, B'yamos HaGeshamim, im lo amar Morid Hageshem machzirin oso, v'hani milish lo hizkir tal avo im hizkir tal, ein machzirin oso. So for those who dive in Sephardi, where they say Morid tal, in the summertime when they're not saying Mashiv Ruach, if you said Morid tal, then you don't have to go back, because Morid tal at least is some kind of an expression of the rains, and that's all we need is an expression. We're just saying Mashiv Ruach Morid Hageshem. We're just expressing it. We're not actually asking for it like we do in Berachas Hashanim, where we say V'sein tal umatu devracha. We ask for rain to happen. So yeah. So for Ashkenazim, it's a problem. For those who daven Nusach Sfard, it's not a problem if you forget to say Mashiv Ruach Morid Hageshem. So then in the next sif, the Orach Chaim continues and says, the Mechaber continues in Orach Chaim, Bamed Dvor Mamurim, what are we talking about here? Shemachazir noso kishalo amar b'yamos hageshamim. So in the wintertime, you don't say it, Morid Hageshem. Hainu kishasiyim kol habracha. That's when you completed the entire bracha. V'hischa bracha she'achareha, v'az chozer l'rosh ha'tfilah. Now, the question is, which bracha is he referring to? Is it Mechaya Mesim, or is it a Takadosh, Hakela Kadosh? So we're going to see that in the Mishnah Berurah, where it actually talks about the fact that the first three brachos in the Shemona Esrei are connected. So what we're talking about really is when we finish Hakel Kadosh. If you said Hakel Kadosh, and then you say, oh wait, I did not say Mashiv Aruch, you got to go back to the beginning. But we're going to see some of the other interesting scenarios here. Okay, but what if you remember before you finish the bracha, yobar memakam, then you can say it sheniskar when you remember it. And now we're talking about mechaya mesim. If you, let's say you said, so his first example is, right, before you said mechaya mesim, right? B'nei monata lachios mesim, and wait a second, I didn't say Mashiv Aruch. What do? I can say it right there. Mashiv Aruch Morid Hageshem, and then I can make the bracha dasha mechaya mesim, which is interesting. We don't have to go back to the beginning of Mechalkel Chaim and do Mashiv Aruch and then continue Mechalkel Chaim. I can just insert it right there. We'll see the Mishnah Berurah explains why that is, but I just want to point that out, that he's saying basically put it wherever you remember it, as long as you haven't finished the bracha of mechaya mesim yet.
And if I did the bracha?
What's that?
If I did the bracha, but I haven't done...
If you said mechaya mesim, but you haven't said ata kadosh yet, then we'll see in the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah says you say it right there, in between the two brachos, and you keep going. So we'll see in a moment the why that is. Very interesting ideas, though. I mean, it's, interesting scenarios. Okay. So, below chasim, right. So then, and he says, rather you say, Ela Omar Mashiv Aruch Morid Hageshem below chasima. I'm sorry, I think Vafil imsima bracha v'nizkar kodem shehischel ata kadosh ein tzarich lahachzer ela omer Mashiv Aruch Morid Hageshem below chasima. That was your question, right? I think you said the bracha, you haven't said ata kadosh. You just stick it right in the middle, in between mechaya mesim and ata kadosh. You throw in Mashiv Aruch Morid Hageshem. Done. Okay, and then here the Rama adds that the first three brachos are considered to be, sort of one long set of brachos. So if you made the mistake and then you don't remember until after you finish the first three brachos, you have to go back to the beginning. Okay. So let's look at the Mishnah Berurah. And if anybody has to drop, I understand. We'll finish this in the next few minutes, though. So let's, I'm going to skip the first one. We'll go to the Makam Shenizkar, meaning that you say Mashiv Aruch wherever you remembered. So, like you're in the middle of Mechalkel Chaim, or you're right before, you said, V'nei monata lachios mesim, and then you remembered, you just put it in right there. Why is that? Ki lo kavu chachamim makam besocha bracha. The chachamim didn't say where in the bracha you have to say Mashiv Aruch Morid Hageshem. Ela amru stam, mazkirin gevuros geshamim b'tchias mesim. This is a quote from the Gemara in Tanis, where it says we have to be mazkir, to mention gevuros geshamim, the strength of the rains, in the bracha of Tchias HaMesim, but it doesn't say where, it just says there. So that's why the Mechaber says, Paskins, that anywhere you remember within that bracha, just say it right there and keep moving. So the Mishnah Berurah adds, Rak shenahagu lomer lifnei mechalkel. Now we say Mashiv Aruch Morid Hageshem right before we start mechalkel. Why? Shehu parnasa. Ugeshamim gamkeim parnasa. Mechalkel is that you sustain us, which is parnasa, and geshamim of Mashiv Aruch Morid Hageshem is also parnasa. So we connect the two together. That's why we do it that way. Hilkach be'ezim makam she'izkar sagi. But since the Chachamim didn't say it has to be that way, anywhere in the bracha you remember, you say it, and that is enough. Upashat be'im nizkar la'achar she'amar v'ne'eman ata lachios mesim detzarich lachzor v'lomar v'ne'eman ata lachios mesim davina me'en chasima samuch lechasima. Now he's bringing up an interesting point, which is just sort of one of the rules of a bracha. When we have longer brachos, where there's a bracha before and a bracha after, and this one is connected, since Mechalka is connected to the last bracha, where it had a bracha before and after, this one is the same sort of situation. Before we can make the bracha at the end, we have to mention the idea of what the bracha is. That's why we say, V'ne'emon ata lachios mesim, Baruch Ata Hashem, Mechaya Mesim. We sort of connect, we introduce it, and then we make the bracha. So one thing the Mishnah Berurah says is, if you remember all the way at the end and said, V'ne'eman ata lachios mesim, Mashiv Aruch Morid Hageshem, then the Mishnah Berurah says, then you should really say V'nei Amana Talachios Misim again, and then do the Chasima so that you've sort of following the rules of how we make brachos. And you'll see that if you just take a look at all the brachos in Shemona Esrei, we do that in every one of them. We sort of introduce the bracha and then make the bracha, and it's very similar language.
Jeff, just one thing.
Yeah.
You said Mashiach Ruach is for Parnasa and not for Gvura. I thought it was connected to Hashem's Gvura, the three brachot.
It is. It absolutely is, and that's why we're mentioning, we call it Gvuras Geshamim, but the Geshem is supposed to be for a bracha, right? The Geshem is supposed to be for our Parnasa, but that is showing Hashem's Gvura. I mean, I don't think the intentions we're saying when we're not thinking about like hurricanes and, like crazy storms. We're just saying the Gevurah of Hashem is that He alone has the ability to bring the rains when we need them. He alone has control over when, how the fields get rained on, and therefore how our Parnasa comes out for the year. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. Okay, so the next Mishnah Berurah, Filu im siyam, even if you completed the bracha, and again, this is Mechaya Besim. B'kin im nizkar la'achar she'amar Hashem yisayim Mechaya Besim. Right, you make the bracha, you say Mechaya Besim, v'yomar tekaf mashiv v'rochem Morid Hageshem. Right, we saw that with he's just explaining, but that's what we saw in the Mechaber. That in between the two brachos, you can just throw in mashiv v'rochem Morid Hageshem and keep moving, so you don't have to go back at that point. All right. Ella Omer v'nachon lechachila sheyomar miyad leval yamtim la'achar kedei dibor. So one thing is that when you do this, say it quickly. Like as soon as you remember, make the or say insert mashiv v'rochem Morid Hageshem as soon as you remember. As a matter of fact, like so this is one of those concepts that comes up often, like during Aseret Yemei Tshuva, where we say Hamelech HaKadosh. If you said Hakel HaKadosh and then remember right away where we say Betoch Kedei Dibur, meaning within the time frame that would take to say Shalom Aleichem, Rebbe, then you can change it to Hakel. You can change it to Hamelech HaKadosh. So same thing here. What he's saying is don't wait. Like try to say it Mashiv v'rochem Morid Hageshem right away without a long pause. Okay. I wanted to get, maybe since it's just about 12:30, I'll say one last thing. We'll just do it outside, which is that the Mishnah Berurah adds in that just like we can do Mashiv v'rochem Morid Hageshem after the bracha of Mechaya Mesim, he says that that's actually true too. Like after you say Ritzei, and you say Hamachazir Shekhinah Solet Zion, and then let's say at that point you remembered I didn't say Ya'alav Yavo. You could add in Ya'alav Yavo in between Ritzei and Modim. You could add it in right in between. However, what the Mishnah Berurah says is that is only true when we're talking about something you have to add in that would make you go back. So, for instance, Ya'alav Yavo at night on Rosh Chodesh, you don't have to go back. Therefore, if you forget it, you cannot say it after you make the bracha of Hamachazir Shekhinah Solet Zion. The only way that this works is the idea is the next bracha hasn't started yet because you haven't really completed the last bracha because you didn't insert what you were supposed to have inserted. So even though you said Mechaya Hamesim, but you didn't say Mashiv v'rochem, so you never really completed that, and you can add it in right there and keep moving. And so too by Ritzei, on those days where you have a chiyuv to say Ya'alav Yavo, and if you forget, you have to go back. Same thing, then you can insert it. But another nafkamina la'alacha would be for Purim and Chanukah, where we add those, Bimei Matisyahu or Bimei Mordechai ve'Esther. Those are ma'akeh. Like you don't have to insert those. You don't have to go back if you forget to insert those. So after you say, after you make your bracha and you remembered, oh wait, I didn't say Bimei Matisyahu in Chanukah time, you can't go back and do it. You've missed the opportunity and you just keep moving. Does that make sense? And we can end on that note. But Again, just really sort of interesting scenarios depending on when you remember that you forgot to say those lines.
Just a quick, Jeff. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys could join, and we'll try to do this, like I said, as often as we have time and we can prepare and all that.
Jeff, is this one of those times where if you couldn't remember whether you said it, you have that 30-day rule?
Oh, that's a good question, right? So if you don't remember, you honestly just cannot remember, then yeah, they say that if you haven't said it for the last 30 days, then you have to assume that you didn't remember. But right, that's only if you really have absolutely no idea. If you have a semblance of like, oh, I really don't think I said it. Like, I think a lot of times we sort of have a pretty good idea that we did or we didn't. So, but yeah, you're right. You have to make the assumption that you did not say it if it's within the first 30 days, because we assume that you're still in the old habit.